Grab your rods and tackle box, folks, as we dive into the wild world of fishing. Get ready for some laughs, some fish stories, and a touch of chaos as we wade into the deep waters of fishing wisdom. Our guides on this trip are a know-it-all, a guy who desperately needs a haircut, and a man named Sam. In this podcast, this motley crew shares their knowledge, their latest fishing antics, and probably get into more trouble than they bargained for. It's a podcast as unpredictable as the sport of fishing. If you love fishing, then this is the place to be, because in this podcast, every catch is a big one. Every story is a keeper, and the only thing more legendary than the tales is the trio delivering them. Welcome to the Bait Tank.
What is going on, guys? Hang on a second, I messed that up. Here we go. Welcome to the Bait Tank. With me, I have Sam, but also I have this guy who came and paid me a visit.
What's up?
We're doing this live. He will be joining me from my office today, and we still have Sam up there. Sorry, Sam, you're 14 hours away. Sorry I couldn't make it down.
I would have made a road trip if I had an invite. I don't know if the weather up here. It's been snowing and rainy and miserable.
I understand that. I heard it's been bad, to be honest with you, and that doesn't surprise me at all. But joining us today, we have a special guest who is actually going to be helping us with both topics today. He is a big-time kayak tournament angler. He is a sponsored kayak tournament angler, so possibly one of the most famous, I guess would be the best way to say it, most famous guests we've had on the show so far. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up here Mr. Dell from Saigo Outdoors. Welcome in, Dell. How you doing?
Let me correct a few things real quick. Number one, I'm not sponsored. I am on Jackson Kayak Pro staff.
Sorry, yes.
But I am not sponsored. I receive no money, so everything that I talk about, I've paid out of my own pocket for. Most famous, you are way too generous. Way too generous on that one.
Maybe,
do I talk a lot of trash? Yes, I talk a lot of trash, and everybody knows me for my favorite bait, which is number one reason why when you said that was a topic, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm coming on to talk about that one.
For sure, and that will be actually topic number 2. Today we're actually going to talk about what I'm coming to understand is one of your favorite species to go after.
Absolutely my favorite, because here in Oklahoma, there is no size requirement and no limit on how many you can take home.
Which is awesome. That makes for a real fun day of fishing because you don't have to worry about any kind of rules or regulations other than your limitations on bait if your state has any, because I'm not really sure that much about Oklahoma, to be honest with you. And yes, she is here.
Yes.
Lisa is up here.
Hi, Lisa.
My favorite kayaker. Yeah, which is a slap in the face because the rest of us on the show fish out a kayak, but you're the favorite. So glad you could make it. I appreciate you joining us today. And
thank you
let's talk about it.
Bringing me in to talk about my 2 favorite topics.
Sure. So why don't you? I'll let you go and introduce the topic. What is your favorite species of fish to catch? So
when you invited me on, and then you showed me the program, and I saw sand bass or white bass. You all in the weird other places. To me, they're sand bass. They are sand bass. They've always been sand bass. And it kind of goes back to why I got into fishing to begin with. My granddaddy taught me how to fish at Lake Texoma, which is a massive lake on the border of Oklahoma and Texas. And back when it first opened up, sand bass were the most prevalent fish. And he got me into sand bass fishing. So he passed away when I was 12. So that tells you how long I've been sand bass fishing. I remember going out, tying up to the bridge at night. He would put 3 little jigs, except he used hair jigs. He put 3 on one line, and the goal was to have 3 fish by the time you came back to the top.
Nice. Now,
so sand bass fishing and I remember seeing photos of him at the cleaning dock, and the cleaning dock was probably 12 by 12, and they just have all their sand bass laid out, and it was completely full of sand bass.
Gotcha. So you said you fished as a kid. Were they naturally there, or were they stocked? I know in certain parts of the country they're stocked. So,
so in Oklahoma they're an invasive species. That's why there's no limit. because they reproduce so stupid fast, and they will end up taking over and eating all the bait fish. So what they did here in Oklahoma and Texas at Lake Texoma to control that is they brought in stripers, the saltwater stripers. They brought those in to eat the sand bass.
Now, in your opinion, did this strategy of theirs work or not work?
Absolutely, it worked.
Okay.
It absolutely worked. Now Lake Texoma is one of the premier striper fishing freshwater lakes in the country.
Awesome.
I was wondering about that. Like normally when they bring a bigger, meaner fish or anything, we have a coyote problem here, so the DNR decided to bring wolves,
Yeah.
and there's nothing that can really mess up a wolf here. So now we have wolf problem areas. So I was wondering if they were going to have a striper problem or something, but
The stripers basically took out the majority of the sand bass. You can still catch a lot of sand bass at Lake Texoma. You're just not going to get 3 at a time like you used to. You're probably going to end up with stripers. And
okay,
Like
catfish.
Alabama, we had a really bad beaver problem, so they released alligators to eat the beavers. Now we have an alligator problem.
It's always something. But
sounds delicious though.
where I live here in Southwest Oklahoma, I'm lucky enough. I've got 2 lakes within a 15-minute drive of the house, and both of them are
Nice.
well stocked with sand bass. And in fact, one of them that's the closest, I was there just a week or 2 ago, and from 7 to 10 feet, my fish finder was just solid between shad and the sand bass. Massive arches underneath the shad.
Sounds like an awesome day of fishing to me.
Yeah, well, I was out there trying to get my fish finder to work, so I didn't really focus on fishing.
Well, now I'm wondering if your fish finder actually was working. If you said it was solid, and you're working.
It was working because as I was trying to find some bass for topic number 2 tonight, there was a guy that was trolling right by me, and I saw him catch a nice 3-pound sand bass in the area that I had just gone over. So
3 pound is definitely a nice sand bass by my standards for sure. We have them here in Tennessee, and they can be schooled up pretty big. I wouldn't say they're a problem, but same thing here. They have a very good striper fishery because of it as well. So
yeah,
like I said, I don't think they were introduced because of that. I don't know for sure, but the way it still coincides with the idea of that there's plenty of food for the striped bass.
Yeah. So there's no stripers here in Southwest Oklahoma, so plenty of sand bass, plenty of largemouth, smallmouth, and the catfish that likes to jump on my line when I don't want them to. But yeah.
Yeah, well, part of it, right?
Yeah.
I'd be happy about
Especially
that situation.
So, obviously you talked about how it's your favorite species to fish for, and you talked about the fact that your granddad got you into it. Do you recall, I know you said it was a 12 by 12 table, do you recall how many fish you would typically catch in a day back then when you first were starting versus now?
Back then, they would usually go out 30 minutes before dark, and they could stay till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I bet they'd bring in 2, maybe 300.
Oh,
Holy crap.
a lot of fish.
And that may be for like 4 or 5 of them. And
But still,
now,
that's a lot of fish.
yeah, and now you'd be lucky to get 20 to 30 in that time frame.
Okay.
See, we're only allowed to keep 15 a day.
I think we're only allowed to keep 5.
Yeah, I think it's 5 in
At least
Michigan.
10. It's either 5 or 10 here in Tennessee.
It's 15 in Alabama.
It's 3 striped bass or hybrids. But I think it's either 5 or 10 on the white bass and yellow bass.
Now, the striped bass and hybrids are totally different. I'm talking straight up white bass, sand bass, there's no limit. Now, the stripers, it depends on the lake. And like Lake Texoma, I think it's 5 with 1 over 20 inches.
Yeah, I think here they have to be minimum of 18 inches. And you can only keep 3.
Okay. But that's
For
why
the statewide one. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what the statewide one is because actually Lake Texoma, I think, is the only one with striper, and then we've got a few lakes with hybrids. But I don't ever fish those, so I don't look at the hybrid regulations.
Sure.
But I'm sure it's 5 or 7.
Probably. I mean, most states are fairly similar when it comes to the same species. As long as they're not labeled as invasive, obviously, right? Because
Right.
once the state labels something as invasive, it's completely out the window what they're going to do with it. So
Yeah.
While we got some people in here hopping in, saying hello to some people, we have Uptown Chrissy Brown in the house. Welcome in, Mrs. Viking, who is currently laying in my living room. Welcome in, Mrs. Yak, who's also chilling out in the house. Welcome in, and Fish in the Mid South is here. He said hello.
Where's Mid South?
He's there. He was the second person to comment today. He did comment early, so I don't know if he's still here.
Okay. Because last I heard, he was going dinner and dancing.
Seems like he's always going to dinner and dancing. Seems like it. I could be wrong here, but it seems like every time I hop up on somebody's show or I do my own, he's I'm going dancing. Well, good for you, buddy. I'm glad to hear that you're able to go dancing. But yeah.
I got 2 left feet.
Yeah, I probably do myself.
I don't want to go there.
It's because you only have one, sir. And I'm pretty sure it's your right foot.
Yeah, I had to think about it.
Yeah, so
there was a time where I had like 2 right feet because I ordered the wrong shell. It was really awkward. But
Shane, it sounds like I'm not using my nice mic because I have it sitting between me and Zach. That's why. Let me know if that sounds any better. We'll make Zach sound like he's echoing in a box. But
I will be your conscience for this evening.
So what about sand bass / white bass makes them your favorite? Other than the fact that your grandfather brought it into you. If that's the only reason, that's fine.
No,
is there another reason why you like taking?
So they hit like a freight train.
I can attest to that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, like I said, when you've got 3 of these little 1/8 ounce jigs or 16th ounce jigs tied onto your line, and then you end up with 3 all trying to go different directions at the same time, what's not to love about doing something like that?
But I the closest thing I can compare it for somebody who's not been white bass fishing for me would be probably skipjack fishing, because you can get multiple on the line. Same thing, like you said, they just go in completely different directions.
I've gotten 6 white bass on the line at once. Off a 6 6-hook sabiki rig under a pop and flip. And that's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
did you bring them all 6 in, or did you just like see?
Yeah, all 6 of them came in.
They must have inhaled those little tiny sabiki hooks.
And
Oh,
the other great thing about them is they're great to eat. They're a great eating fish. There's
I have
plenty of
never had
meat
to
on
taste
them.
one. I have been told that.
They're a little
They're my
firmer
favorite
than a
eating
crappie,
Okay.
but they're still amazing meat on a white bass.
Now, I have been told that you have to be very diligent with getting the red line off of them. Is that true? Or is it more about cleaning the meat?
It's more about cleaning the meat. So they do have a bit of a red line, especially the bigger ones. So they are very closely related to the striper, and you're going to get some of that. And it doesn't take much to just get that out. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
I got you.
And I've noticed with their meat, they're a sweeter meat than, say, like catfish or something like that.
Yep. Exactly.
They're
and
really
so that
good
just
on
adds
fish
to why I
tacos.
love them.
All right, so that brings me to my next question. What is your favorite way to eat them?
Fried.
It's
Any
just
particular
America, man.
seasoning?
Like everything's fried.
No, just straight up egg bath, dip them in the cornmeal, put them in the peanut oil, done.
Good to go. I got you.
All right, it's gonna
That's
sound
awesome.
really
All right.
weird. So my favorite recipe
Oh,
for
Lord.
white bass, 'cause I love white bass fishing. Pancake batter.
I have
That's
not-
got to be a northern thing, man.
It's
because it seems like
pancake
you do a lot of-
batter
you do a
and
lot of fish up there.
cornflakes. Like you crush up the cornflakes, you mix them. It sounds.
That's really weird.
I started it out where this is going to sound really weird. So you crush up the cornflakes, you mix the pancake batter and the cornflakes together, and you egg wash, and you just shake it up, and then you deep fry it. It's really, really good.
It sounds like it. I think
It sounds really, really weird. It was one of those things where we just like, what do we have for batter? Because we weren't planning on keeping fish. It just kind of happened.
Sure.
And we were camping, and
That was the result.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
in that case, I can understand that. But if that was the intention
No.
when you were cooking, we were gonna have a problem.
Yeah. No, we're gonna have a talk.
It's one of those happy accidents. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously, for those who don't fish white bass, I mean, I'll why don't you go into a little bit about your favorite way of targeting them? Whether it could be technique, could be bait, could be combined. I know you already said your grandfather liked using the hair jigs.
Yeah. So the absolute favorite way is late spring, early summer, and the water is just boiling with shad on top, and all you see are these tails flipping over, and doesn't matter what you throw out there into the middle of them, you're gonna know when they hit it. And that's my absolute favorite. Just looking for the water boiling on those early mornings or late in the evening as soon as the sun comes down. Other than that is, and we talked about this in the pre-show, beetle spin. If it's the middle of the day, this is my favorite thing to throw if I don't know where the fish are or what I'm trying to catch that day. Beetle spin. Whether it's yellow,
a particular color.
Dang it, probably don't have that color around here. I've got everything else. Well, there's the orange and chartreuse tail.
Okay.
But with the beetle spin and sand bass, it doesn't really matter as far as what they're going to hit. They see the little flash, they think it's a shad, and they see some movement on the tails, and it's game on.
I got you.
So I would say something with a little chartreuse would be your best bet for sand bass.
All right. Well, for those who don't know what a sand bass is, I'm going to pull this up here. This is a sand bass / white bass / whatever you want to call it in your part of the country. It's a little short, stocky looking fish. They get to be fairly big, but compared to, they're a member of the true bass family, which includes stripers, the hybrids, the white bass, the yellow bass. I think it's just those four. Don't hold me to that. But this is the most common one you'll see across most parts of the country is these white bass. And they have these stripes that go across from their head to the tail. They are completely solid. But like I said, they are taller than they are long. I would say the average for most places is going to be between 2 and 4 pounds. If you catch one that's above that, you catch a really, really big one. Just for an example here, like I said, short, kind of stocky, but they have the solid tails. That's actually an excellent size one right there. That would make me very happy. This article says this was a hybrid. I'm not sure if it is or not because I don't see any broken lines. Usually the hybrids have some broken lines as well. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just a short, stocky fish.
They're definitely shorter than a striper, and taller.
Yes,
shorter and taller than a striper.
If I'm not mistaken, there was a video or picture. Here we go. Here's here's the 3 species here they're talking about. What's up bigger? Hang on. That didn't work. Didn't work either. Sorry, folks, having technical difficulties.
Doing better than me. I've tried StreamYard once or twice, and I couldn't do all the things you're doing now.
Just a second.
I can't do all the things he's doing, and I'm watching.
There we go.
So,
all right, so
there you go.
White bass, short and stocky one here. All right, and of course you can't see my mouse. So the top one of those 3 there, that's the white bass. The middle one, they're saying the striped bass, and then the bottom one is the hybrid. The striped bass from the lateral line up have the solid stripes all the way back. An actual regular striped bass has the non-broken stripe lines all the way through from top to bottom.
7.
And then the hybrid, you see,
They have 7 stripes.
7 stripes. There you go, 7 stripes. They're solid, though. They're never broken. If it is a hybrid, you're going to see these broken lines above the lateral line. You can ignore the bottom part of the stomach. If they have the broken lines above, it's a hybrid, flat out. Because the white bass and the hybrid both have the broken dots below the lateral line. That's the easiest way to talk about it. If it's solid stripes above the lateral line, it's a white bass. If it has solid stripes throughout, it's a striped bass. And then if it's a hybrid, like I said, they're going to have broken lines throughout the whole thing. Just so you guys know, for those that are new to that species of fish.
Yeah, and on the hybrids, they're kind of the best of both worlds when you're trying to fight them. They hit like a ton of bricks like a white bass, and they will try to spool your reel like a striper.
That's what I'm told. I've only ever, I don't think I've ever actually caught a hybrid. I've only ever caught white bass and striped bass. But I can say even the small striped bass try to spool you as well.
See,
so
I've never
yeah.
even caught a striped bass.
I think I've caught 2, and my wife's caught 1.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Nothing
it's
more fun than using back in the day using monofilament, because that was all we had. I was fishing one time for striper, and I had a medium action spinning rod with 10-pound monofilament striper fishing.
The 10 pounds kind of like my go-to when I'm river fishing for just anything.
Yeah,
And actually, the striper I caught, the biggest one, was on the 10-pound line, or no, it might have been 12-pound line. So, but that's usually 10, 12-pound range is what I usually would go for, even fishing against concrete walls, just because I don't know about you. If I'm fishing below the dam, especially which is where they seem to be mostly congregated here, having that smaller diameter line just makes you present your bait better in that kind of current flow. Anything much bigger diameter wise, you have to use a heavy sinker.
Good luck getting it all back in, though, is the problem.
That is true. That is true.
You've got to set your drag pretty light for that, and you hook into here in Oklahoma, below the dams at 10 killer and below the dam at Texoma, it's not uncommon to get 20, 30-pound stripers.
That would be awesome.
So good luck on that 10-pound test monofilament, buddy. It's not happening.
Well, if I was purposely fishing for 20 to 30-pound fish, I'm probably not going to use that light of line. Let's just be honest here.
But if you're fishing below the dams here, 20. Just don't even show up with 10-pound. Just don't.
I really wish I went fishing when I was in Oklahoma now.
Yeah.
I made poor life choices. I need to re-enlist.
Yeah, and you were in an actually really secretive part of the great state of Oklahoma. Not many people know about the great fisheries we have here. They just see Fort Sill and Lawton. And when I was an instructor, I would say, don't judge my great state by the armpit that is Lawton, because Lawton just sucks.
Yep.
But just 5 minutes north, or right out the gate in Fort Sill, you've got the Wichita Wildlife Refuge with all of its tiny little lakes to kayak on. You've got Lake Latonka. You've got Lake Elmer Thomas, which is on the border of Fort Sill and the refuge, with great largemouth and smallmouth. Lake Ellsworth that I can practically see out my back door.
I'm picturing all of these places too in my head right now, and I'm hating my life. Like, you do realize this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, man, I saw that place. I was thinking about it. Like, yeah, I should buy some fishing and tackle here and just try.
Well, so this is my third time to Fort Sill and the first time I've ever fished. So even somebody from the state doesn't know how great it is here.
All right, I feel less bad now.
Yeah.
Less bad, not better, but less bad.
Yeah, less bad, like 5% less.
Yeah.
I got you. All right. Well, let's see.
What's your next question? I got stuff laid all over the table. We're ready to go.
Yeah, baits. Let's talk about baits with the white bass specifically. I know you said your favorite was the beetle spin.
Yeah, so that's usually what I'll start with is the beetle spin. And then I showed you the hair jig. So white, marabou, redhead. Can't go wrong. Can never go wrong.
Sure.
Any water condition, any temperature, white, red. And I always throw 1/8 ounce because typically I've only got one tied on. And a 16th, I guess, is too light for most of the stuff I'm throwing, except for my super mega ultralight. I know that's not the term, but it's got 4-pound monofilament. The rod is 3.5 feet long, so it is. I mean, it's like a bow and arrow. You can bend the thing all the way down and like fling like a bow and arrow. You can grab a hold of the lure and just let go at the same time, and it'll go shooting out.
Well, based on your demonstration just there, I hope you'd actually let go of the lure, not the rod.
Yeah. So spinning rod, got the line. You let the
Yeah,
anyway.
I got you. That's... So,
then
you
I
said
might
you
go with
use- you s-
16.
I got you. You said you only use one jig. You said your granddad used to teach you to use 3. So,
Okay.
what made that change?
So what he would do is he would be sitting in the boat anchored, and he would just
Mhm.
drop it straight down.
Okay,
So if
vertical
you've got
fishing.
3 jigs and you just literally you let it free spool, and when it stops going out, you engage the reel and just slowly start coming up. That's how
And
he
all of a
did
sudden
it.
you have 3 fish on.
And
Okay.
then all of a sudden your rod tip bends over and you start cranking and good to go. So I rarely do that. Most of the time I'm casting out to something. In fact, I happen to know a nice little secret spot 5 minutes from the house where there's one stump that's just above the water line, and it's also on a ledge that drops down, and
Mhm.
all the sand bass congregate around that stump and off the ledge.
Sounds like an excellent place to fish.
Yes, yes. First thing in the morning, you might have to chase the birds off of it because they're sitting there fishing as well. But
Right.
yeah. In fact, I want to say I might have been using this one, curly tail. Again, it's got some red on the head. You'll notice a pattern here. Everything's got red, and I almost always have chartreuse and white. And
Nothing wrong with that if it works. That's for sure.
yeah, so I'd probably caught 2 or 3 sand bass on this, and then once again, stupid catfish decided to show up. Probably a 3-pound catfish on 4-pound test line.
That
Yeah,
took a
that
minute. I've done that
yeah.
before.
That was fun.
So, question for you. Yeah, I noticed your curly tail grub. You have it the curl going down.
Well,
Do you
it's
do that on
actually
purpose?
it's actually up. It as I'm holding
Oh,
it
just
that
that
way.
flimsy.
It's
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I
So
know. Last episode, there was a certain individual who was very, very, very adamant that you had to rig it upside down. So I didn't know if you had the same thought process or if it was something totally different based on the fact that he's using a certain bait and you're using a different bait.
so on his bait, he's done more research on that bait. I try to like. Here's another beetle spin that I've changed to the again white and chartreuse. When I was
love
rigging
those
this
little
up
baits.
right before we started, I actually accidentally put the paddle tail upside down, and I had to flip it back around. I don't like the upside down paddle tail. I like them to be properly flipping the way I believe they were designed to be. Does it make a difference? I don't know. I haven't noticed any different. I've probably also rigged a curly tail sideways. Does it really matter? Because when it's moving through the water, it's going to be doing its thing as I try to catch myself. But I don't think it matters really how you do it as long as you get the body relatively straight.
I got you. All right. In terms of, go ahead, Sam.
But how deep do you let it go?
It depends on. So recently getting a fish finder, I say recently, almost 2 years ago. Really, I'm looking for. You can see as you're moving, you can see that line of blob, and usually that's going to be your bait fish, your shad. So if I can get my lure below that, and typically trying to count off a certain distance to get it down there, that's what I'm trying to do, is a foot or two below where I'm seeing all that bait ball.
Gotcha.
I got you. Becca Mudtramp, yes, he does. It is Sigo Outdoors. He has typed his name. I got the name's not displaying. Hang on, let me. I will get that pulled up for you here in just a minute. That was definitely an oopsie on my part, but I will get it pulled up for you in a minute.
Actually, Becca, you subbed to me earlier this evening, or you said you did anyway.
She's probably just trying to call me out for not doing it and being a bad podcast host, but we'll see. So when you chase these bait balls, obviously the bait, we all know bait does different things throughout the year. What is your favorite time of year to fish for these, and what would your typical, I don't know, strategy or typical thing you've noticed during that time of year?
So the other great thing about sand bass is early spring, they're more of a river fish. So like all the local Oklahoma groups right now, they're asking, are the sand bass running? So they actually run upstream to spawn. And that's what everybody's waiting on, is for those big sand bass to start running up a stream to start spawning. Because being a stream, they're narrowed down. You can easily be from the bank and just cast all the way to the other side, bring your little jigs, whatever, across, catch you a nice 2-3 pound sand bass. So that is the absolute best, is when they're moving up for the spawn. Summertime, they're also great. And like I said, first thing in the morning as the sun's coming up, and then late in the evening as the sun goes down. When I first started kayak fishing about 2.5 years ago, I was out at Lake Latonka. I got out there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was cooking hot. Fished with my beetle spin, changed tail colors. I'd caught one, so I knew there were fish in the area. But I finally gave up because the sun was going down, and this is before I learned that you needed lights on your kayak. But I was just tired. I was cooked. And as soon as I got my kayak up on my trailer, the entire ramp just started boiling.
Oh, great.
So I'm standing there on the ramp, blocking the ramp with my vehicle and my trailer, and just throwing out my beetle spin, bringing back a sand bass every cast for about 15 minutes.
There's definitely nothing wrong with that for sure.
Early or mid-spring, about this time here in Oklahoma anyway. And then during the summer, early summer, looking for those big old boils out on the water where they're chasing the shad right after a shad spawn. And at that point, they really don't care what you're throwing, as long as it looks close to a shad. And so I will say, when they're hitting topwater, you definitely want something heavier. So you've got the beetle spin, which is anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 ounce. You got your jigs, and then here's something that I actually have. So this is going to be an 1/8 ounce. It's all in there. It's got the weighted hook, the weight in the tip. You can buy, I don't know if I've got, yep, here they are. Berkeley Power Baits. Yep. So I've got them.
You get those at Walmart. I know those.
Heck yeah. I've got them. So this is 1/4 ounce. And then I've also got 1/8 ounce in more of a blue color. When they're hitting topwater, what you want is something heavier to sink faster past the little ones. Because those big ones are down there below waiting for whatever gets stunned to fall out. So you want something a little heavier to get past those little ones quicker.
And you make a good point there too. Like white sand bass aren't the only ones to do it. On pretty much all predatory species do it. They'll be chasing this bait, and they're not actually. Some of them are going to be inhaling bait, but like you said, they're stunning the snot out of them. So there's definitely two different layers of fish. You can see with pretty much any species, if you ever do any kind of research, even with catfish, even with some of the slower species, they're following these schools of fish, just waiting for the stuff to flutter down. Because that's definitely what happens, and it's pretty fascinating, honestly, if you think about it. Because it's like, especially with those really, really fast predatory species, because they're just moving and just flying through there and just smacking stuff, and it's insane. It's the best word I got for it. It's just something you don't see every day for sure.
So in your graphic, you showed that the white bass and striped bass are very closely related. Back at Lake Texoma, when I was in high school and college, we would chase the stripers around, usually around Memorial Day. And they're hitting topwater just like the sand bass that I was talking about. We would throw, have you guys seen the Little George? It's basically,
I have not. What is a Little George?
Little George is literally a chunk of lead with a treble hook and a blade at the back.
Oh yeah,
okay.
I've seen those. 1/2
ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce, and number one, you can cast them for a freaking country mile, because if you get too close where they're surfacing, you're going to run them down. So you got to make those super long casts, but the more weight there is, the quicker it'll drop, and it'll look like a bait fish that's been stunned and get down to those bigger ones too.
That's interesting. I have not. The closest thing I can relate in remembering what that looks like would be one of those lures you use to to cut people who are crossing your lines, which is
Yes.
a
The broadhead
treble
lure?
hook with razor blades, basically, with a
Yeah.
gentle lead.
It's not too far from that. Not too far.
I have
got
some of those.
Oh, actually, I've got one or something similar. Let me clear off all my stuff here. Now that I look, I actually have.
You pay attention to this, guys. This is definitely something I've never heard of. I'm sure others out there have never heard of it either.
Yes,
Okay,
I used to have
okay.
one of those.
So I have been told
that's
those are
it.
called a tailspin.
Well, it is a tailspin, but the one that we always called them Little George. It was made by Man's Bait Company.
Okay.
So this is the blue and silver part there. That's the weight. That's the lead. And then you got a single treble hook and a tailspin. And if you can chunk that out there and get it in there, as it falls, that tail spins to show some flash, and it's falling like that with a flash on it, and it looks like a stunned bait fish.
I got you. Wolves Den, Tim Wheaton, thanks for coming in, guys.
Just putting these away Amazon right now.
Lisa also said that she's always heard them called to be tailspins.
Well, fine,
so
guys.
No, just saying, man. Like you said, white bass, sand bass, tailspin, Little George. I mean, it is what it is.
So this I've had in my tackle box forever. Another great topwater lure. This one's just a little bit lighter. Don't have my glasses on. This is a Cordell. It's got blades in the front and blades in the back.
Looks like a spy bait.
It is essentially, but so here's the thing. My granddaddy taught me to fish. I fished a lot in the 80s and 90s, and then got married, had kids, joined the Army in 2004. All that stuff sat since about the mid-90s. So yeah, I've got a lot of stuff from the 80s and 90s, and believe it or not, this still works. The spy bait, you can call it a spy bait, but it's been around for a while, guys. There's no new technology there.
But they say that there's no new ideas under the sun, so it is what it is. But that's awesome. So I know Sam was a collector of baits as well, so he's probably drooling over there, seeing all these cool old stuff popping up. So he's quite the collector.
Speaking of
a couple of those
baits,
I have.
There's one bait I know I have somewhere, but I keep looking for it and can't find it, and I know I've got it because I've seen it a time or two. But a river runt. It's a crankbait.
Heard it.
And it's got, I think it was made by Hedden Lures, and it's got a metal bill on it. And I probably bought that.
Yeah, I have one of those.
The bill's bolt.
You would have one of those, Sam.
On, right?
No, I was like, I know I've heard that before. Yeah.
What'd you call it again?
River runt. Yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can pull this up.
Rover runt.
Yeah,
river runt.
You need to knock it off over there.
And
I didn't know it's called that. I just call it the weird thing. I don't know what. Yeah, the weird thing. That's what it's called.
Another great topwater lure for sand bass, striper, bass, Hedden pop or is it Hedden or Rebel popar? Ow! As I hook myself.
Where you can buy.
What color is the ones you have, sir?
It's yellowish with some
silver
gray
stripes and a red eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hang on. Let me see if this is it here, because I found one on eBay.
Yeah.
And I'm
first
curious
one that showed up.
If this is it.
Absolutely.
And then my second question is, did you pay $180 for it?
No, and mine's in better shape than that.
Mine's in a little worse shape, but I throw it quite a bit.
I probably bought it when I was 4 or 5, and now I'm not 4 or 5.
Did they have lures back then? I'm sorry.
Wow.
You're funny.
I try.
Gonna make it where I don't have anybody that wants to come talk on the show anymore. Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome. Actually, like
so if you guys want one of these,
over there.
All you have to do is pay $180 on eBay.
I need to go find that thing and probably mount it over the TV or something. If they're $180. Wait, what else do I have in this tackle box that I stole out of my other stuff?
let's look at some other prices here. You have a $2,000 lure and a $4,000 lure, and all of a sudden you're financing your new house with one.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, dang.
My eyes kind of got
$180
really
on
big.
eBay?
That's what that one says. It's literally the fourth thing that popped up. It wasn't the other ones aren't even the same thing. There's one called The Runt by Carl's Amazing Baits, which that wasn't it. There's one called Headden's Crazy Crawler Lure, which that ain't
Close.
it. And the next one's the Torpedo Hard Bait, and that's not it either.
The torpedo.
Yeah, basically the spy bait without the front prop.
I mean, one of these.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah, that thing right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And this
I
was
That was only $7 at Bass Pro.
well, this is a tiny torpedo, and back in the late 80s, they did some funky paints, and it's not going to come through in the camera, but it's kind of a holographic type paint that's on it.
Okay.
So yeah. In fact, the pop art was very similar paint. But yeah, those I've had since the 80s, and I still use them.
I got you. Well, Becca's a little late to the party here. She said redhead with chartreuse body spinners are also a great bait for springtime, as well as other seasons too. He mentioned that. That was one of his first ones he pulled out.
Yep.
So,
Well, this isn't a
Yeah.
spinner, but hold on. Redhead,
I see.
chartreuse body. Well, that actually brings me into the next thing I do,
Uh-oh.
which, hold on.
I was referring to that beetle spin. It was red with a
Well,
chartreuse tail.
So,
Same thing.
Blakemore Roadrunners.
Yeah, my wife loves those things.
I love them. They're like a beetle spin. They catch everything. So I somewhere on my table here, I've got red heads. So I always buy the red or the chartreuse heads.
But I say
And
my wife
then-
has a whole collection of those.
And then
and
I
pretty
can
much every
add
color they
whatever.
make.
Well, there it is, sitting right on top. That make you feel better, Becca? There it is, right there. You can
Where's the
tell that there's
chartreuse
only
tail?
one left in this package
Right.
because I use it a lot. Well, here's a package of white bodies with chartreuse tails,
There you go.
and I just slide it on, and yeah. So those
And
are my
then,
go-to for
Chad.
sand bass.
Gotcha. Chad, thanks on that, sir. Appreciate that. Congratulating me and my wife on our PBs of catfish. I know it's your least favorite species, but we caught some big catfish the other day. That was
They're-
fun.
I've never been a catfish. Now I have jug fished. I've done trout lines. I've done all that. It just, as a kid growing up fishing, if you weren't doing something with your hands, you were probably going to fall asleep and nap or be
Sure.
bored.
I still do that. Catfish.
Well, yeah, as adults, it's different. Now it's called a good day. You wake up because your rod's jerking. Yeah, okay. But
Right?
yeah, now I still have to have that activity. So that's where the sand bass, the crappie, the largemouth. Otherwise, I'm gonna just sit back and drink too much beer.
See, I've even
I
gotten
got you.
lazy on the kayak. I bought an XI3 and put it on the front of it.
Oh man, this is my first year
Yeah.
not paddling, so
It's so
But
different.
say it's
ain't it?
it's awesome, isn't it?
just pedaling into the wind and actually. So my first tournament in this kayak was last week, and being able to point it into the wind and just slowly pedal and still cast into the wind and bring the bait back across like a bait fish would, that was amazing.
But I say my dad, the first time I went kayak fishing with my dad, since I got the Hobie, first time he and I went together, he was doing the same thing. Like, wow, that's awesome. Like, yeah, it is. It's real great. But then when he was able to pick his kayak up and walk it down the trail to the truck, and I had to drag mine like a Neanderthal,
Yeah,
for half a mile.
I think
mine's
heavier too.
But I say he beat me on that one. I definitely have a kayak cart now. No longer dragging it across the ground.
I think
so
mine's even heavier than yours is.
Probably because all the batteries you got on it and everything.
I got a 100 amp hour battery, the XI3, extra battery for the fish finder, plus the 7-inch fish finder. Weight
85
or
fishing
lead.
poles.
About 85 fishing poles.
You have 85 rod holders.
Wasn't it like,
Might as well. Geez, I
I
think
have
he's got
14 rod holders. Leave me
14
alone.
rod
I was
holders.
gonna say, didn't
Yeah,
he take
yeah,
like 12?
14.
yeah.
Holy cow!
Who uses 14 rod holders in a kayak?
I got
This guy.
6 in the front and 8 in the back.
His are
Or-
permanently mounted, and so he can do any kind of fishing. But it's just like
I was gonna say that's a catfishing setup for sure.
I
It
say,
is.
I run 4 when I'm catfishing,
I run 6 max.
and I run 1 when I'm bass fishing. I run 2 if I'm trolling.
I still only do 1 if I'm trolling.
But it depends on the bait I'm using. Let me rephrase. If I'm going after skipjack or even white bass, for that matter, I'll have 1 on each side, and I just pedal. Yeah, try to keep and maintain a steady speed, and just kind of watch where I'm going on my graph.
I guess
trying
that
to
goes-
follow a contour line.
I guess that goes back to me paddling so much because
Sure.
2 rods would be in the way of paddling, and it was bad enough with
Oh,
1.
yeah.
That
Definitely.
no.
Oh yeah, I
no.
hated it. When I had to paddle when I first started kayak catfishing, I hated it because I would only run 4 rods, and then like if I tried to just adjust a little bit, I'd smack.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then,
Alright.
then I got to the point where like I'm getting a motor and I put a motor in the back, and I kept getting hung up in the motor in the back.
And I remember the first trip he went out. I went out with him on the first trip when he had the motor in the back, and we went like I don't even think we went half a mile downstream. And I turned around, he's way back there. Somehow he managed to catch like 3 rods in his trolling motor. I'm like, you all right back there? And I could barely hear him go, "Don't talk to me."
How
Luckily,
long
I
did it
have
take
not
to
done
untangle
that.
yet.
I got up, put my knees in the seat of my Frontier 12, pulled the trolling motor off the back, took the trolling motor apart, got the lines out, put the trolling motor back together, and then resecured it to the back.
There's no way. There's no
Without
way.
going to
I
the
would've
bank
fell in.
and doing that. You did that out in the middle of the water.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did. I watched him do it, but there's no way I would have.
I'm 260 pounds and very comfortable on my kayak.
No. I am not
Yep.
that big, and I am very comfortable on my kayaks, and I will always go to the bank to make those kinds of adjustments.
Yeah, he it blew my mind. I was just like, I'm sitting there waiting. Like I had my camera ready, had my phone out. You know, GoPro was going, but I had my phone out, zoomed in because he was so far behind me, trying so I could catch him falling in. He never did. So
Well,
I'm
a
kudos
big
to
guy,
you
but I'm
for
very
not falling in.
I'm very well balanced for a big guy. Until you give me more space on a boat, I am very comfortable on a kayak. You give me space on a boat, and
He
I'm the
trips over
most
everything.
clumsy person you've ever met.
we went fishing today. Actually, him and I did while he was up here, and at least twice he almost fell in headfirst into the lake. Well, actually, 3 times if you include the one where you tripped over the fire.
Oh yeah, my toe still hurts.
He is a very clumsy individual in open spaces. But back to sand bass fishing. So
Yes.
you said, like you said, your favorite species was the sand bass. You were brought into it by a grandfather, specifically back in the day where there was a ton of them before they introduced striped bass into that lake, Texoma. You said specifically to cut that down. He taught you how to vertical fish with multiple jigs. You prefer fishing with a single jig or a single bait, depending on where they're at and what they're doing. Your favorite recipe to catch them on, your favorite recipe to eat them with would be
Old school.
cornmeal, old school cornmeal,
Just
and
like
peanut
your
oil.
grandma used to make.
Unlike Sam with his cornflake and pancake batter mishap, that turned out well for some reason.
The only
Sounds weird.
seasoning is Tabasco. Once it's cooked, you dribble some Tabasco.
You're in
on it.
Oklahoma. Everything gets Tabasco.
Yeah,
Everything gets
ketchup.
Tabasco in Oklahoma.
Ketchup, Tabasco, and that's it.
Everything
Oh.
I eat gets hot sauce 90% of the time.
For sure.
You're lucky I didn't bring a bottle of hot sauce with me.
Well, you know. Let's see. What was it was ahead of the question here? We got that one already. Got that one already.
Oh, you made a list of questions? Wow.
No.
I try to always have
Like
a list of
that.
questions. I am trying to be prepared. All right. I want to make sure everybody gets through this and I don't forget anything and all that good stuff.
And that mishap is
Um,
amazing, just to let you know.
Which mishap?
The pancake batter one.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Now
Man,
that
who
he's
is-
talking about it, he's going to want to make some tomorrow.
He might.
I am going to make pancakes tomorrow, but that was already pre-planned. I have bacon in the fridge too, because America.
Yeah.
Well, dip those in the
course.
pancake batter and fry those up.
I have.
With
Like, are you talking like pancake bacon like things? Like, so I cook the bacon, put the pancakes on the pan, and then just put the bacon in the pancake, and then
you can do that. Some people do different things. You can deep fry the pancake batter on a bacon strip too, if you wanted to.
That's where
Hey,
I thought he was headed with
This
it.
is
I have
Let's
done
say
that.
I-
But most of the time, I
this is-
make
this is-
waffles and do it because it's just easier. But
Jeez. Oh, make me hungry. Late night food with Sam.
that's why I turned my mic off because of meat sticks.
I got you.
I'm hungry right now.
So you said sand bass is an invasive species. At
In
this
Oklahoma.
point,
In Oklahoma.
right, invasive in Oklahoma. They brought striped bass in to tame that down. Would you say that overall, in your opinion, they're in a healthy spot, or do you think they're really still a problem?
It
this point?
depends on the lake. So the Lake Texoma is definitely a premier striper fishery. They definitely have massive stripers at Lake Texoma, as well as smallmouth. So if you think you're going to this giant lake and not get a chance to catch smallmouth, that's not true either. So Lake Latonka here in Southwest Oklahoma holds the state record for smallmouth at 6 pounds 8 ounces.
That's a big smallmouth.
Yeah, and that's also where I typically go to sand bass fish.
I got you.
So it's not hurt the smallmouth or largemouth. They're at Lake Latonka.
I got you. Well,
Now
cool.
the sand bass are not very big, I'll tell you that. So apparently they're being eaten quite quickly.
Well, whether it be by anglers catching 3 at a time, if it happens anymore. Like
I don't think
grandfather.
they do, because at Latonka and Ellsworth, they also have sawguy and walleye, and that's what most people are trying to catch. I've seen them throw back sand bass after sand bass after sand bass, and then they get one keeper sawguy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, eating good tonight." I'm like, "You just threw back like 10 good fish,
You threw back all
dude."
the food.
I wish it probably tasted better.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. I find that hard. Okay, I've had walleye. I've had perch. I think they're going to be hard to beat. Like, I never ate white bass, so maybe I'm wrong. But those are some really, really, really hard
I'm gonna
species.
have to learn you.
No,
We'll have
walleye
to
is
learn
amazing.
you.
It's my favorite fish. Like, there's no beating that. Well, there's no beating that in freshwater.
I'm about to say, I'm a fat kid. It's hard to beat any kind of food. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah, that's true.
Next time you come to the house, I'm cooking you some white bass.
I got you.
There
Well,
you go.
we are coming on to the end of the first hour.
All
Do you
right.
have anything else you want to add about the sand bass topic before we take a little intermission?
No, just if you're here in Oklahoma and you're sand bass fishing, or you catch one, take it home and eat it. Don't
Take it
throw
home and eat it.
Don't throw it back to grow bigger. They grow big as it is.
But say we typically use them for fish bait here too.
We're not allowed to in Alabama.
Well, we are here in Tennessee, and you're in Tennessee right now, so you could have today if you wanted to. We didn't have any though.
But that's food.
Couple
Love
announcements
Miss
before the
Cindy.
intermission.
I see Miss
Yeah.
Cindy there.
Yep, Cindy's in here. Tim, good point. Everybody, if you're enjoying the show, hit that thumbs up button. We are trying to grow the show. We are currently streaming to 2 YouTube channels, which I'll talk about that in a second, and on Facebook. And then we are working on growing our following on Twitter and Instagram and on TikTok as well. Trying to spread out this knowledge that we're able to share with everybody to various different platforms. Specific for the 2 YouTube channels, I'm from Yak Shore Outdoors. He's from Catfish Viking.
And I look very rough right now.
Sam is from Sam's Amputee Adventures. We do have Dell from Sigo Outdoors joining us tonight, talking about sand bass, and for the next topic, talking about spinnerbaits specifically, which I know he's looking forward to talking about. But we are moving the show to its own channel. Just for we think it'd be better for everybody involved. So if you are watching this on Yak Shore Outdoors or on Facebook, please consider checking out the Bait Tank Facebook page and the YouTube channel itself, and consider subscribing over there. We will be continuing to stream to both channels for a little while, but eventually we will be shifting over to just the Bait Tank channel. So just a heads up for you guys on that one. But yeah, so we're gonna take a couple minute intermission. For those who need to use the restroom or get a drink or whatever, give Dell a chance to rest his voice box for a minute. 'Cause he's been talking nonstop for the last hour, which I appreciate very heavily.
You've got my favorite topics here, buddy. Well,
Yeah, it makes it
It
easy.
don't help. We go off the rails a lot.
Yes, we do, and that's part of the show. You know, we talk about fishing. That's the whole point of it. But we are people, you know, and we're close friends, and that's part of the enjoyment of the sport itself, and that's something we want to share with everybody. Between knowledge of actually learning how to catch fish, learning new techniques, learning different things about different areas of the country involving that, but also the fact that it is something that you can do with your friends and your family, and definitely get some enjoyment out of it. So, like I said, we're gonna take a couple minute intermission. We'll be back, and when we do get back, we're gonna be talking about Dell's favorite lure, not just his favorite species, but his favorite lure, which is going to be the spinnerbait. So we will see you guys very, very soon. Be right back.
Grab your rods and tackle box, folks, as we dive into the wild world of fishing. Get ready for some laughs, some fish stories, and a touch of chaos as we wade into the deep waters of fishing wisdom. Our guides on this trip are a know-it-all, a guy who desperately needs a haircut, and a man named Sam. In this podcast, this motley crew shares their knowledge, their latest fishing antics, and probably get into more trouble than they bargained for. It's a podcast as unpredictable as the sport of fishing. If you love fishing, then this is the place to be, because in this podcast, every catch is a big one. Every story is a keeper, and the only thing more legendary than the tales is the trio delivering them. Welcome to the Bait Tank.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. I know it's only been like a minute or so, so we're going to give everybody another minute to get things taken care of if they need to get taken care of. Yes, Tim, I did not need to get a sandwich, but I did need to do was get a drink. So I got that taken care of. Becca says she never sees us taking a break. We do take breaks. Everybody has natural urges they have to take care of, but we are very passionate about the sport of fishing, and it is what it is. That's all I'm saying about that one. So I'm bringing Dell back up here for a second.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and let
prepared? I had my drink and my Jackson koozie. I was prepared for 2 hours. I'm all good.
That's a good point. So you said it was your first tournament last week out of the new kayak with the pedal kayak. What kind of kayak did you get? Would you be willing to share that with the crowd here?
Absolutely. So, last year, the last 2 years, I've been in a Jackson Coosa HD, which is a paddle kayak. And last year was my first year tournament fishing. And I was that crazy guy paddling against people with XI3s. So I was at a bit of a disadvantage, but sometimes it was an advantage because I learned boat control and I learned to thoroughly fish an area. So
Sure.
when we get to spinnerbaits, I would throw my spinnerbait, not catch anything. I'd throw a chatterbait, not catch anything. Throw crankbait, not catch anything. And I would throw everything that I had rigged up before I would ever move. So I learned how to thoroughly fish an area. This year, I am in a Jackson Gnar, which is almost 14 feet long with a pedal drive. And it feels like the old, remember back in the day, the Cadillacs, everybody's like, oh, that's a boat because they were so big. Yeah. It's only 1 inch wider, but the inside is over 4 inches wider. I have 4 inches more room inside than I did in my Coosa. And obviously I'm about 2 feet longer and completely different hull design. The fastest I ever got my Coosa up to paddling was 4 miles an hour with the wind. And I did 3.5 miles an hour last week into a 20-mile-an-hour wind.
That's awesome.
So much more efficient hull design, much more stable just because of its design. And so, yeah, the Jackson Gnar is it was designed for tournament fishing and offshore fishing, chasing reds out in the bays or up to 3-4 miles offshore.
I got you. Yeah, I love. I have a Hobie. Like I said, I bought my Hobie used, but like you said, it's totally different design. I had a Perception Outlaw paddle kayak, which was like
Oh yeah.
a barge. Basically, I was lucky to get 3 miles an hour, like you said, with the wind, and
Did you have the
couldn't
10 or
turn
the
at all
12?
to save my life.
Did you
I had
have
the
the
11.5.
Oh, okay, so you had the big one that really is a
Yeah.
barge.
Yes, barely turns. I'm a big dude. I weigh almost 400 pounds, and the capacity I was only 425. So I was
Oof.
dealing with that struggle too.
Well,
And then now I got the Hobie's, just 600-pound capacity or whatever. But
you've seen my first one, haven't you? The 10-foot narrow blue sit-in.
no, I didn't see that
I
one.
caught a 30-pound catfish in that, and the first time I caught a 30-pound catfish in that one, I was like, I need a bigger kayak.
Right? Makes a big difference, man. That's for sure.
So my very
so-
first kayak was actually an Ascend 10T. And
I got you. Which that one's not exactly
Stable.
tiny either.
well, I thought it was going to be great. I thought it was going to be stable, and it was great for my first kayak. But when you first start kayak fishing, you're only out there for an hour, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
you fall in love with it because you get a sand bass on a beetle spin on your first trip, and now you're hooked. So that 1 hour trip is now turning into, well, I can leave work an hour earlier, and now it's 2 hours, and then the sun sets later and it turns into 3. Well, now I'm going to go fish on Saturday, so you're out there at sunrise until 2 in the afternoon. That's when I realized that the Ascend was not for me. Was when
I
I
got you.
couldn't lift my legs.
My first was actually a Sun Dolphin.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
that's what I had at first, and I did well with it. I've only ever had sit on top kayaks,
Me too.
but they everybody starts somewhere. But
Yeah.
hey, we are back. Everybody, thanks for sticking with us still. Those who are just joining in, we just spent the last hour talking about sand bass, which is Mr. Del Patton's favorite species of fish to go after. But now at this point, similar in fashion to our conversation last episode with Modog with the chatterbait, we were talking to Del about his favorite bait, the spinnerbait.
The spinnerbait.
I'm gonna let you take over the show here. I want you to cover absolutely everything you can think about the spinnerbait.
Okay.
Best lure in the world.
So I brought in. This is a. Now I'm all of a sudden not remembering. It's a Cashin rod with a Shimano Corrado reel, and I've been using Shimano since the 80s. In fact, I've got a 30-plus-year-old Corrado out in the garage that I still
Nice.
use. So this always, every time I go out, starts with a spinnerbait on it. This is a kayak series chattergrass rod, so it's designed for the chatterbait, but it always has a spinnerbait that starts on it.
Is Modog in here? I think he'd be upset
That's
about
I
that.
was just kind of wondering about that.
So
I was like looking at the comments.
this is the spinnerbait that I started last week with, and then I put a chatterbait on, and that didn't do any good. I'm like, I'm going back to my spinnerbait. So this is a single blade, gold color, and so it provides a. We'll get into the blades here in a minute, but each blade provides its own type of thump. You don't have to change necessarily every different bait. I do almost always now use some sort of trailer, usually a paddle tail, and chartreuse and white is definitely my favorite, with either a blue or a white paddle tail. So I did want to bring this in. This is always what I start with. The spinnerbait may be a little different, but there's always a spinnerbait on there. It's always sitting right next to me as I pedal out. It's the first rod I'm going to pick up. So that's how much I love spinnerbaits.
I got you. Just to point out there again, did you you said in the last section that you did not have a preference on how you rig the plastic other than the body being straight. Is that still the case with the spinnerbait?
That is still the case. Typically I do here's another one. It's got an even bigger blade on it, and it's black and chartreuse. But you can see the paddle tail is hanging straight with
Well,
It'll
let me
be
ask you a
down.
question quick. Just connecting the two episodes, obviously, but on the episode with Modog, he was talking about the chatterbait because of the way the bait was designed.
Right.
The drag on the blade was affected by the drag of the trailer. Do you think maybe it doesn't affect the spinnerbait or the beetle spins as much because the blade is not in the same section of water? Maybe.
Well, from that perspective, you are correct. It's not in the same column of water. However, if you don't get that pedal tail either pointed straight down or pointed straight up, it will try to roll your spinnerbait. So instead of coming through the water straight, it's going to try to roll it. That's the important part of either having it straight up or straight down. Because if you have
Wait,
it
you mean it's not
sideways,
supposed to roll?
yeah, that's my biggest fight too. I'll be bending the wire overs.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, they're not supposed to roll over, because if
got you.
they start rolling, if you're trying to keep it up just under the surface and it starts rolling, you're losing that ability because it'll start spinning completely around, and now you got to slow down. You're not keeping it right under the surface.
I may or may not admit that that's ever been a problem for me.
It was a problem. The spinnerbait that I showed you, I had that same problem. I had to adjust that tail several times. So usually, and in fact, I've got two. These may look familiar from a giveaway a couple months ago.
Maybe.
Booyah spinnerbaits. I actually bought this one because of the color. It's kind of a ghost shad. It's kind of gray and white.
I throw it.
Yeah. Well, you see that I took it to the tournament and it never came out of the package. But the other thing is weight. I always throw 3/8 ounce. Almost everything I throw when I'm bass fishing is 3/8 ounce, whether it's a chatterbait, a spinnerbait, a swim jig, a jig, Texas rig. Everything I have is 3/8. The reason being is I'll always know how it feels. I can throw a
Sure.
Texas rig on my chattergrass rod and I know it's going to cast like a 3/8 ounce, whatever. I'm more accurate that way. So where do you want to go with this? Go with my favorite, which is actually Strike King. And you can see this blade right here is actually painted. So you got one to flash up here, and then this one, the backside is, I don't remember if the backside's painted or not. Let's find out.
Well, while you're opening that up, you were talking about the different blade types. We said we talk about that. That
Yep.
one, the three main ones that I know of are the Willow blade, the Colorado blade, and the
Indiana.
Indiana. Thank you.
Yeah. So the
Oh.
Willow Leaf it looks just so. This one right here, this is a Willow Leaf. It provides a lot of flash, but not a lot of vibration. And then you've got the Colorado. This was actually supposed to be a nighttime spinnerbait. So this has got a very large Colorado blade. Provides a ton of thump and a lot of flash. And then the Indiana is kind of in between. It looks more like a Colorado, but it's longer. So it's kind of the in between blade. And then blade size also makes a difference. Oh, here's an Indiana. Let's go way back when. This is an old Strike King. You can see the original rubber skirt is gone. So you can see this isn't quite as long as a Willow Leaf, but see how it's skinnier than the Colorado up top?
Yeah.
So there's your Indiana blade. And back in the day, Strike King actually crimped some of their blades. You can see there how that's crimped to add a little bit more flash to it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that part. That part's new to me. I didn't realize the crimping was a thing, but that makes sense.
Well, it was in the 80s. I told you I got some old stuff. So here's the spinnerbait that was in the package, and the backside of this blade is gold. So you got flash on one side, and then the other side's going to look like another bait fish. So you're going to see the flash and the fish, the flash and the bait fish, while the front continues to throw flash. This one actually has a trailer hook that came in the package. I don't know you can see it. Maybe I pull the skirt
Yep.
up a little bit. There it is. I usually don't fish with a trailer hook, mainly because I'm always putting some type of trailer on it, and the trailer
Right.
hook would get in the way. So that'll be one of the first things that comes off, and it'll get thrown in my spinnerbait box.
I
Which
got you.
I know MoDog probably only has one box of chatterbaits. I've got 2 spinnerbait boxes. So let's see how he does.
Now the
On
question is, who's more obsessed? Who's more obsessed, MoDog with chatterbaits or you with spinnerbaits?
It's equal. Well, the
It's equal?
difference is I will actually put a chatterbait on because it does have its use. It's a
Right.
different sound, different look. But he won't ever put one of these on where I will actually swap them out. So here's
you.
another one where the blade is actually painted both sides a chartreuse.
Now that one looks like it's shaped a little bit too. It's not just a plain willow leaf. It's got some cuts in it.
Yeah.
Looks like.
Yeah, and so that's going to reduce some of the thump that you would get from it. And then the front blade is painted white. So as they spin, you're going to get that white and chartreuse look to it with a lighter thump to it.
I got you. We do have a question from the crowd. First off, hello,
Yep.
Monty Sheets. Welcome in. But Tim Wheaton said, do you prefer a willow blade over Colorado blade and why?
It depends. So
all these bass guys, everything depends.
Yeah. So if you saw me out there with MoDog and he destroyed me with his chatterbait, I was actually throwing a double willow leaf that day. So I was trying to get that's a lot of flash. I was trying to outflash him on that day. So really it goes back to trial and error. Do they want the flash or do they want the thump? And my preference, honestly, since he asked what's my preference, I want something that I can keep right under the surface. I want to create a giant wake. I want to be able to see that giant wake go. And so a Colorado blade is going to create more drag and allow me to get it up higher than a willow leaf will. So I honestly prefer the Colorado.
So you prefer the Colorado because of the thump. You prefer the Colorado because it rises up the top of the water. And I'm guessing it's because your favorite retrieve also is keeping it close to the top of the water column.
You would think so. You would think so. But it's not. Not now.
Okay. What is your favorite retrieve?
My personal best fish, largemouth, on a spinnerbait was last summer at Lake Elmer Thomas, or Letra, if you've heard us say that. I threw, which it was probably very similar to this one, but it was obviously not in the package. But yeah, it was a blade just like that. But I threw it up there in 6 inches of water into some grass, and he just nailed it as soon as it hit the water. So I do love those 6-inch, finding those large 6-pound bass in 6 inches of water. But before that, my personal best was on essentially a Colorado blade in January here in Oklahoma. I have no idea what the water temperature was because that was before I had a fish finder. But I was just paddling around and I saw one little stick, skinnier than my finger, sticking up out of the water, kind of out in the middle of where I was fishing. And I was like, okay, I'm going to throw my spinnerbait up there because I love spinnerbaits. And it's a stick. There's only one hook to get caught on a stick or a tree or whatever. So I just threw it up there and I just kept slowly changing how fast I was retrieving it to let it keep dropping. Come to find out, I was only in 6 feet of water, but there was a giant tree there. And after 10 casts, I was like, all right, one more time. And then I'll move to something else. And that's when a 5-pound monster slammed into my spinnerbait in January. So if anybody tells you, oh, those are only springtime lures, no, they're not. They're year round. And he slammed into it. I had just gotten my Kusa, had no anchor, no net, no nothing. I went for a nice little sleigh ride trying to get this thing to the surface, and finally got him up, and a bass boat was passing by. I was like, "Do you guys have a net?" And they're like, "No, but we're gonna watch you try to land this thing." And
Thanks.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I ended up with a nice 5-pound bass in January on a spinnerbait. And
That's awesome.
just the week before that, I'd gotten a 4-pounder on a spinnerbait on the opposite end of the lake. And I was pulling out a backlash, so it sank all the way to the bottom. And as soon as I started retrieving it, I had a nice 4-pounder slam into it right off the bottom. So that's why I
That's
like
awesome.
a spinnerbait. Modog talks about how you can fish the chatterbait up and down. Well, guess what? This is the original chatterbait, people. This is it. The A rigs with all the flash and all it's just a takeoff on a spinnerbait. That's all it is.
Won't lie, I'm so excited for I have like 3 or 4 A rigs that I bought this year, and it was my first time using them. I'm so pumped for that.
But
I love spinnerbaits though. Like actually, I have a couple of pulls in 1 second. I'll show you.
But with an A rig, you've got anywhere from 3 to 5 hooks to get caught on rocks, to get caught on trees.
Yep. I use them. I know exactly what you're talking about. In the kayak, you're just hoping you can bend the hook out and straight. Otherwise, you're losing a $30 setup.
Yeah. So what do you got there?
It's a Strike King.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a mini though, because early in the year they don't really bite large baits up here.
Well, let's just be honest. The average bass up there is much smaller too.
I got a mini. That one's in chartreuse.
8.3 pound largemouth.
Well, I'm not saying average size. I didn't say there was no big ones.
Okay.
But just on average, the northern restrained largemouth is typically smaller.
I don't know. I got to argue about that because, like, I catch a lot of 1 or 2 pounders, yes, but I catch a lot of 3 and 4s.
Well, they fight harder. I can attest for this.
Yes.
Like, I'm from Michigan originally. I fished both strains. The ones down here, they don't fight very much, but they are on average bigger, for sure. And I do want to make a correction quick. Ignore Nightbot on this one, guys. I forgot to update it. The next episode actually be on April 20th. But we'll talk about more about that at the end of the show. Monty said his PBA bass was also on a spinnerbait. It was on Lake Okeechobee in 1988. It was 12 pounds, 7 ounces.
Yep.
That is a big largemouth.
And back then, that's when I learned how to throw a spinnerbait, was back in the 80s. And like I said, I took a lot of time off from fishing, and now everybody's like, "Oh, throw a chatterbait." You know how many fish have seen spinnerbaits lately? Not that many.
Not as many. Yep.
Not as many. Now,
I caught a few fish on spinnerbaits last summer.
Unfortunately, the Bassmaster Classic was here in the state a couple of weeks ago, and apparently Lake Tenkiller and Grand Lake saw a lot of spinnerbaits thrown at them. In fact, the winner, Drew Gregory, he went all the way up the Illinois River on the north end of Lake Tenkiller and was throwing spinnerbait in 2 feet of water, and that's how he won.
I got you. So was that possibly the lake you fished on this tournament the other day?
No. That lake's like 3 hours across the other side of the state. No.
I got you. All right. So
until I start winning more money, which is any money, regularly, I am not going to go. I am not going to go fish with those guys. In fact, the Oklahoma Kayak Anglers had a tournament today on Lake Eufaula, which is the second largest lake in the state behind Lake Texoma. And I'd intended to fish today here in Southwest Oklahoma, but there were 40-mile-an-hour winds, and they were facing 20 to 30-mile-an-hour winds at Eufaula in kayaks.
Yeah, that's not fun. For me, if it's
been there, done that.
My cutoff's like 15 miles an hour before I'm like, I don't really want to do this.
Well, with the right kayak, you can get out there. Like last week for our tournament, the wind was 15 to 20, and I'd never fished in wind like that. But with the right kayak, it is possible. I definitely had a much nicer day.
I'm about to say, and let's just be honest here. For that species, you're not always fishing deep water. You know, here, the last tournament I fished in was for catfish out of the kayak, and it was a 15-mile-per-hour wind, but I was out in 60 feet of water. It started white capping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would have much rather been in 15 feet or less. One, because the wind doesn't affect it as much, but two, I could have found some coves or bays that weren't out there in the middle of the wind too.
Yeah. So last year, I came in fourth in the tournament that I just fished last week, and I was sitting in 1.5 feet of water throwing my spinnerbait. I was the only one throwing a spinnerbait that day, and finished fourth. And my fourth place total would have almost won the tournament this year.
Nice. Well, nice or not nice, depends how you look at
Yeah.
it. Nice for last year, not so nice for this year.
The water was down, and yeah, the conditions were very different.
Tim
So, yeah.
said,
Yeah, I saw that comment, and that is 100% accurate.
one thing I love about spinnerbait is you're targeting active feeding fish and sometimes provoking strikes on inactive fish. Yes. That is, I mean, and that's with anything. If you're dealing with anything with flash or thump, I mean, you're provoking those fish on more than one sense. You know, you got your sight, which they rely on. You got the lateral line, which they rely on. And then again, matching the profile of the baits that they're feeding on too. And one of the nice things that I know Modok talked about the chatterbait. You have a large profile. Typically, you see those fish that are going after those bigger singular baits like that. But with the spinnerbait or the Alabama rig, you're able to throw these multiple balls of these smaller baits, which is going to be, personally, in my opinion, more attractive. On average, you're going to get more bites on that kind of setup. I mean, I don't know if you necessarily agree with me on that, but I feel like it's better for matching the hatch when it comes to bait fish for most parts of the country.
I'll throw what I throw.
So
this guy over here throws 6-inch, 7-inch glide baits,
oh.
or bigger.
I love them though. I love them. The biggest ones I own are 12.
Oh, jeez.
12-inch glide baits.
Yeah, I just got diagnosed with carpal tunnel. I can't throw a bait that big. Holy crap.
Yeah, I'll pass.
He's actually got my old glide bait rod back here.
That's what I use for my A-rig.
I grew up thinking 6-foot rods were long, and now I've got 7-foot rods.
Yeah, so that's another thing too. Yeah, I never really noticed. Me personally, I never really noticed the difference between the two. And I think even from sitting in a kayak, it's even. I would have thought it'd be less noticeable, but now that I fish out of the kayak, I noticed that there's a lot of differences you have to consider when it comes to rod size, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with a net or not having a net.
Or vertical rod holders,
storage,
or angled, or you're doing horizontal. Yeah.
A lot of different things to consider there for sure.
So you talked about matching the hatch, which is actually a great next topic. So single blade, small Colorado blade, obviously would be for recent spawns of the bait fish where they're small. Or if they're a little bit bigger and a lot more plentiful, you'd go to the double willow leaf, because it, like we mentioned, similar to the A-rig, you're showing a lot of flash. There's a lot of bait fish right there. So this is representing multiple bait fish, where this may only represent one.
Right.
And then the next thing is, what do you do with the wire? I've watched videos on this recently, and I'm like, well, yeah, duh, that's why I do it. Do you open it up? Because when you've got the skirt, this looks like the bait fish, so they're actually biting the hook. Or do you narrow down so when they grab the whole thing, they might feel this wire, but they're still getting the hook? I can tell you, the day that I had the best, I was just bank fishing for the heck of it. I bent the heck out. Well, the fish bent the heck out of my wire, but I ended up opening it up as far as I could, because they were small 1-pounders, and they would see the skirt, but they were too small to grab the whole thing, so they would grab the skirt and the hook.
I've never thought about that. That's
an
interesting idea.
If you look at any of the ones that you got from me, most of them are bent out like that.
Like I said, I've never noticed. Never thought about it. I usually just tie them on out of the package and throw them out the way they are.
I do that too. I do it both ways. I'll throw them straight out of the package, or if I get short strikes, or I feel that they're hitting the because you can feel it if they're hitting back here towards the back, obviously they're smaller fish, so I'll open that gap up and I'll slow it down. Because you can feel them tugging at this. And I've actually brought some to the surface where all they had was the tail. In
Right.
which case, that's where you get the trailer hook. But I hate the way the trailer hook acts, so I don't mess with the. If they're only grabbing back here, they're not big enough for me to even want to put on a measuring board or weigh.
Right. And that tournament angler news there, speaking out there for sure.
I might have one somewhere where I have bent the crap out of it. You can see I've done even more stuff to it. I know I've got it somewhere around. There it is. I knew I'd find. See, I just had to open a different box. Oh. So this is the one that I bent the crap out of. That
sheesh.
wire did not
Holy
start
crap.
that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
That looks more like a buzzbait now.
Yeah, but what that did is it brought the blades forward from the body back here and moved them in a different location, so it created a different presentation.
Sure.
And they hammered the crap out of this thing because I bent it up like that.
That is
That looks like one of the posts off an umbrella.
something like that. Yeah, no kidding.
And you can see the bottom part too is all kinds of bent up because they just slammed into it so many times. They bent the wire all crazy, and I was like, I'm gonna keep bending it to where I want it. The more I bent it into this shape, the more they hammered it.
That's pretty funny. Well, let me ask you a question. When you were bending that wire, do you have more problems with that when it's trying to roll?
Can you see how?
I would say that one definitely rolls at least a little bit.
That actually straightened it out.
Oh,
They had destroyed this so many different ways and bent it in so many strange directions that's how I was able to get it to go straight. Yeah.
do what you got to do. That's what it boils down
Yeah.
to. You do what you got to do.
And those are adjustments you can't make with any other bait.
That's true. You can only do certain things with certain baits. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I got a question real fast. Do you
Okay.
ever use buzzbaits? Because they're kind of like spinnerbaits, but not. They are and they aren't.
I
It's
have
like-
one. I have one. Well, no, I take that back. I've got two. So I've got an old one from the 80s that has a clear plastic blade. And then I've got a
What?
newer
I've
one.
never seen one of those.
Yeah, they're called ghost blades.
I haven't
That's
either.
in my actual top water box that I didn't bring in. But then I have an actual 2-blade buzz bait with the frog body.
That's what
on
I've
it.
always seen is the 2 or 3 blade buzz baits.
Yeah. I rarely use it. That's when somebody's
No.
telling me they're actually hitting absolute top water for largemouth. Then I might actually throw it.
Okay.
Right,
I always
maybe-
refer to the buzzbait as the spinnerbait's ugly cousin that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
So-
And just sitting here near me, I've probably got 20 spinner baits, and I've got 2 buzz baits total that might
that's
see
saying
the
something.
water one day out of the year. But these spinner baits it doesn't matter the time of year. I'm throwing a spinner bait.
So I had one, and actually I tied it on my other fishing pole because I'm like, I've had this for years and it's never touched the water, so I need to fix that. And I went shoe shopping, and they had a buzzbait there, and it was this big. I have never seen that before. I'm like, oh my god, it's adorable.
I went shoe shopping and got a buzzbait.
Yeah.
Kinda-
I mean, it was a sporting goods store.
Kind of like these are called Pond Magic, and
I
so
like
they're
that color.
they're little 1/8 ounce spinner baits, and it ties back into topic number 1. I bought these for sand bass fishing because I love spinner baits.
I was gonna ask if you ever if you use spinnerbaits
It was one of my.
white bass, but
It was
I
on my.
didn't wanna
It was on my
bring-
list of questions.
Yeah, I didn't
Good.
want to bring
it.
topic 2 and topic 1.
And topic
so
one.
How often do you
Yeah.
use spinnerbaits for white
I
bass?
will downsize drastically, obviously, on the spinner bait. I'm not going to throw a 3/8. These are maybe a quarter, maybe 1/8 and a 1/4 ounce spinner baits. So I will throw these for sand bass on a spinning rod.
Okay.
But
How often do you do that compared to the other way?
It'll be after I've thrown a beetle spin or a roadrunner.
I got you. And just not got any bites, or just trying to upgrade the size of fish.
More bigger fish. Yeah.
I got you.
Or
I
if
got you.
if the other two aren't working, it's a different presentation. Obviously, these Pond
Sure.
Magic are going to have different action, different flash, different vibration.
I really like that color.
Yeah.
Like,
So
you can ask
You too.
Yak over there. We made a little bet, and I was like, I want a purple and black spinnerbait. If our friend here rescues a dinosaur egg or something like that, and yeah, I
Some
was
video
very
game bit, yeah.
I was very specific for the color.
I don't remember the brand, but I want to say these might be Strike King. But I
It
do
kinda
know
looked like it.
if you look up Pond Magic, I know that you'll find it. And
Well, then
they
my
come
next
in
question.
every size, every color and blade shape, just like every other spinnerbait does.
So obviously we've talked about the different types of blades and how willow blade being the most flashy, Colorado blade being the most thumpy, and then obviously the Indiana blade being in between. Modog went into this big spiel about colors and water clarities and whatnot. Do you have any said wisdom on that sort of thing for spinnerbaits?
You know, I'm probably not the best person to ask that question because I'm still getting back into it. What I basically throw this one. This is a Lucky Strike, and it's called Fire Tiger. So it's got black, chartreuse, and white, and so that's made to resemble a perch. This is where you're actually looking more of what are they actively feeding on. So when it comes to color, I'm thinking of what is that fish feeding on? That's what I'm going to try to match. So this is something I would throw more midsummer when obviously those perch are everywhere and they're up shallow. And that's what I would match that with. And then this is more of a shad type color. So if there's a lot of shad in the water, I would throw white chartreuse. Honestly, what I don't have, which you hear a lot of, is a solid white. I honestly don't have a solid white spinnerbait. The closest I would have is this one, which is white with some red.
So
Now, is that based on a preference that you don't have a solid white one, or just
I've
conveniently never had one?
probably conveniently I've never had one because I've been successful on everything but a solid white. So why do I
Sure.
need to go buy another solid white when I got 20 of them here and these all seem to work? So this is a Strike King, and you'll see the hook is even red. Maybe you can see it.
Yep.
This one's actually caught a few fish. You can see some silver there.
Yep.
They've knocked the red paint off of it. So this is probably the closest I have to white.
I got you. I myself throw solid white quite often and do fairly well with it. It's kind of much my general purpose go-to thing because we do have shad year round here in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And it's one of the easiest ones to match.
So I do want to go backwards a little bit. You were talking about blades. So I told you this was a Lucky Strike. These blades are actually very small. And I'll bring the Strike King that I just got out. You can see how much smaller those blades are.
Yeah.
So to keep this up at the top, I am freaking burning this thing so fast. Even with my 6-to-1 or 6.5-to-1 gears, I can't keep this up where I want it. But if I wanted to slow roll this is great for slow rolling because it's not going to come up as I'm reeling it in. This
Right.
I can actually keep up more on the surface because
Because of the bigger blades.
Yeah, the bigger blades create more drag. They'll also create more thump and more flash. So that's also what you got to think of. How am I fishing it? Am I keeping it up towards the top, or am I wanting it to sink down lower?
I got you.
Blade size is going to impact that as well.
Okay. With that being said, and you specifically mentioned that, so just to confirm here, it's not so much water clarity that you're worried about. For the sake of clarity, that's really more of the blade changes
Right.
When it comes to colors, you're specifically going after what they go after forage wise.
Right. Trying to match
Okay.
the hatch, which is a term that I hear quite often. Match the hatch.
I mean, I don't know about everybody here, but for me at least, it was something I was taught very early on. It just makes sense. First, it was just throw a worm on there, you'll catch something, and then it was match the hatch to catch what you want looking for.
I just found a white spinnerbait. It's my pond magic.
Hey,
It's
all
my
right.
tiny little pond magic.
Oh,
There's my white spinnerbait.
pond magic is booyah.
Booyah. Okay. Yeah, that's. I'm looking over here. That would be my only solid. Oh, dang it! I lied. I had
Darn
to
it,
dig.
man!
There it is.
Come on.
I had to
Now-
move about 5 others off the top of it.
Now you're gonna see them on sale or something like that. Like, oh yeah, that's worth having. Now you're
So
gonna have to-
honestly, I don't necessarily look at what's on sale. I do have my favorites. So I wouldn't be a good Oklahoman if I didn't say that Jimmy Houston taught me how to bass fish.
That's fair.
So now you see where the spinnerbaits come in because he has his own line. That's why I bought. So these Lucky Strikes, they were right after Toby Keith bought the company. They were selling these. I think they were 3 in a pack for $6.
Holy crap!
I bought
hard to
2
beat that.
packs. I bought 2 packs of them. So the Lucky Strike, and then Jimmy Houston has his Redman spinnerbaits, which are more like this with a giant Colorado blade. Love single Colorado blades. So I would say the Jimmy Houston Redman spinnerbait is probably my favorite, followed by Strike King.
Okay. Have you ever tried the Guggen one?
No, I have not.
Okay, I got a bunch of Guggen baits for Christmas this year, and I'm like, it's a new brand, and I heard mixed things.
Don't know how I feel about it.
I'm not sure about this here.
Right?
So after 20 years off from fishing,
All right.
I might have. What's this Guggen company?
Right.
And yeah, I kind of went a little overboard on Guggen, and
Well, I like
Yeah.
their backstory.
So I will even throw a bandito bug on a spinnerbait.
Nice.
But this is probably the last pack of bandito bugs I'll have because they fall apart too quickly for my life.
That's what I've heard a lot with the soft bait. They put too much salt in them or something.
I don't know if it's that, but for my favorite trailer, honestly, and this is a giant one, is the Strike King Rage Swimmer.
I like those. I do like those.
So
Nice.
this is the 4.75. I bought a bunch of these to go to the state championship with because if I was going to catch a fish, it needed to be a big one.
Right.
One of my favorite trailers is
Hey,
almost
Muff.
the same as yours, just a different color. So I'll go show and tell. So
Okay, well, what's your favorite color?
He's going to get it out of his.
Here's the 3.25 in a baby bass color.
That's
another one of
usually the size I throw.
Yeah, that's
So my
honestly
favorite
what I
trailer is
typically
pretty much
put
the
on.
same thing, but 6 cents version of it.
Yeah.
You mean Divine Swim
That's
Baits?
it.
Hey, there it is.
Yep.
So I actually
Love
bought
those
these for the
things, man.
tournament last week because
So these are just like knockoffs, but they're
Okay.
basically the same thing.
so this trailer is orange and black. Again, I was hoping that there might be some sunfish spawn, so I was trying to emulate that onto my spinnerbait. What is this? I don't think I ever tried this, but Zoom salt craws.
I've never even
I've been
tried
told.
those.
I've heard those are good too.
I've
for trailers.
seen them, but I've never tried them.
Yep,
They're
these are the juniors.
they're really hardy. Like they lack in action, but they're durable. It's all get up.
Oh, look, here's another Divine swim bait in a blue,
I've got those in the car.
blue and white. So I will say I do like the Sixth Sense. They don't tear up as easily as Guggen, and they provide more action than the Rage Tails.
Do you ever use like Yamamoto's?
Is you talking about
Are
these?
you referring to? But I know some people really like the Yamamoto. What is it? The Zaco.
Yeah, so this is like I have a bunch of these things. This is just like my kayak one, so it's just a small little bag, but that's mostly what I throw is Yamamoto's.
Now I'm mad because there was a new tail that I bought last week, and now I can't find it.
When you say a new tail, you mean new trailer? I'm guessing.
Yeah, new trailer. I'm sorry. So I've also thrown on the Zoom Fat Albert and a white pearl.
Nice.
So again,
Dude, I can't get those here.
Really by Zoom.
I cannot get those here. They do not have those here.
Hmm.
Well, if they do, they're in some other section. I've never been able to find
You have to order
the fat
those
curly tails like that.
where I'm at. Offline.
Just
You
come
may
update.
follow them every now and again in Cabela's.
We don't have a Cabela's. They closed.
I know that, but I'm just saying you might every now and again where I'm at.
Oh, here we go. Fluke tails.
Yes, I throw those a lot. But I
Yeah,
usually
so-
throw those weightless.
Well, I was going to add them to my spinnerbaits
Why not? I mean, I don't see why
because
not.
it again has a different action than a paddle tail or a craw or whatever. It just again, that's how you can change what a spinnerbait does. You can have it flipping like that, or you can have the paddle tail. And yes, I actually do. I will throw all of these on just a weighted hook as a swim bait.
Nothing wrong with that either. Like you said, you cover all your techniques, and again, you fish from the kayak. You mentioned also being more thorough, so you're going through all the stuff. You because you can't cover as much water. Obviously, you're trying to cover every possible other means you can,
Right.
To do that. And
Yep.
I definitely get that, and that's what was somebody said it a while back on something I was watching. They're like they said kayaking is more personal because of that too.
It is.
Because you can try to cover as much water possible using the same bait over and over and over again, but if it's not working, it's not working.
Yep.
But by forcing yourself to slow down, you can actually learn the water better and learn what the fish want better, for sure.
And you're thoroughly fishing an area. Say you get hung up with your crankbait on a tree. Well, you know the tree's there now. And then
Right.
you can throw something that's not going to get hung up on that tree, and you're going to work that tree or even a laydown coming out off of the bank. You can thoroughly work that with just about everything you've got, and they either don't want anything you have or there's nothing there and you move on.
Right, for sure. If somebody was starting out brand new to fishing a spinnerbait, I know you mentioned your setup earlier, but say this is somebody who maybe is 100% brand new, is kind of hesitant to spend money, all that good stuff. If you had to pick them an ideal setup that was worth the dollars, wasn't necessarily 100% top of the line, wasn't necessarily tournament recommended, what would you recommend for somebody who's trying to get into spinnerbait fishing, both in terms of rod and reel, but also in terms of what spinnerbait to go after?
Man, now I'm wishing I had brought my other rod and reel in. So when I got started back a few years ago, obviously all the companies, there's new companies out there that weren't there 20, 30 years ago. And it was before I had my cash and rod and my new Corrado. I'd heard about this company called 13 Fishing.
Okay.
And
Yep, I'm familiar with that one.
yeah, recently purchased by Rapala, by the way, if you hadn't been keeping up on that one. So I looked into it, and some of the big fishermen that I started following on social media were sponsored by 13 Fishing. And so I kind of looked at their stuff and their prices, and they had some super pricey stuff. I'm like, if I'm spending that kind of money, I'm buying Shimano. But they also had combos, rod and reel combos, 7-foot medium heavy action rods with a reel on it for $100 at Academy and Dick's and wherever else. So I went and bought one. It's like, if it sucks and it's broken here, I'm only out $100 versus 175 for a Shimano Corrado rod or reel and 175 for a cash and rod. I'm only out $100. Well, I'm still using it 2 years later. So
Right.
I have been known to throw a spinnerbait on there, whether I didn't want to change what was on this one, and I just wanted something different, or I wanted to throw a chatterbait. Usually the chatterbait goes on my 13 fishing rod, or I've thrown crankbaits. In fact, right now it's got a brattle trap on it, so I didn't bring it in tonight. But I've also fished with Texas rig on it. So I would say find something at your local big box store that's around $100 for a rod and reel combo. That is going
How
to
is
give
that?
you it's going to give you the best range of things you can use on it. And like I said, I have thrown spinner baits on it and it's performed just fine.
All right. And then let's see. Where's the rest of my list here? Where did it go? If you were out fishing,
Mhm.
what is, and say you've been throwing absolutely everything you got. We obviously know your spinnerbait's your favorite, but if you saw this one particular arrangement of either cover or situation, what screams as in like it's the absolute perfect scenario for your spinnerbait?
Trees.
Just
If
flat
I
out
s-
trees.
If I see any type of wood, whether it's a brush pile sticking out, I see just a single stick. Obviously, that worked out for me. If I see a log laying down into the water, I'm paralleling that log a good 10 minutes before I move on. So wood is definitely my number one. That's what I'm searching for is
Okay.
any type of wood. If I go over if I'm looking at my fish finder and I see a tree on my down imaging, yeah, I might spin her back around and throw a spinner bait into there. So I'm definitely looking for wood. Number 2 choice would be rocks.
Like single boulders or
No,
like
riprap, a bunch of
okay,
rocks.
gotcha.
I'll just like you would with a square bill or a chatterbait, you bang it off the rocks. Because the advantage to a spinnerbait over any other bait is if you just all of a sudden stop reeling it in, you still get action out of it. Those blades are going to continue to spin. There's no other bait where you can completely stop reeling it and still get action out of it. So there's the number one reason why I love a spinnerbait. I can always
I
get
gotcha.
action out of it regardless of what I'm doing with it.
I got you. I missed a second where to go.
And then
okay, so you
grass in less than 2 feet of water. If I can find grass, especially thick grass like reeds sticking up out of the water, oh yeah, I'm chunking it up in there.
Okay, so number 1 was wood, number 2 is riprap, and number 3 is reeds in shallow water.
Oh yeah.
I got you. All right. So then we talked earlier about how you don't necessarily color specifically. You're literally only matching what they're eating. And in terms of water clarity, you are doing the blades thing. Could you kind of go through that?
So
which if you really like you have clear, stained, muddy. Let's say for just those 3 in particular, is it really just that cut and dry where it's like Willow for clear and Colorado for muddy?
It's not at all. It's more of how much sun there is.
Okay.
How much cloud cover you've got. Because if you're on a super cloudy day, you're going to need that flash to be magnified. If it's a bright, clear blue sky, any flash is going to just go all over the water. So you want to minimize that flash. You're still going to get flash, but you don't need double willow leaf on a clear sunny day.
Okay.
That's too much flash. Too much.
Gotcha.
That makes sense.
Way too much. Maybe go to a painted blade on a clear sunny day.
Sure.
Because you're not going to get as much flash. You're going to get some, but not as much. But you're still going to get the thump.
Okay. And then you said you use specifically 3/8 ounce
Yep.
because you know the way the feel and everything about it. If that's the case, and you were mentioning dropping depths as you go for like when you're paralleling logs all day, you're dropping the depth to be able to hit the different water columns. Do you have kind of like a way to determine what the optimal speed is? And I know in the previous hour you're talking about counting down the baits as well for depth. Do you do that with a spinnerbait? Do you?
I count down 1 second per foot. That's the advantage of a 3/8 ounce lure.
Okay.
For every
Good to
second,
know.
it drops a foot.
All right.
That's how I do it. And then if I'm trying to keep it down there, I reel slow, and then I slow down some more.
Okay. Do your retrieves, whether it be your speeds or I guess we can talk about that too in just a second, but your speeds or your actual retrieve types, do you change those based on the forage, or do you kind of go with the same thing and just deal with the way the lure is?
So that's something that I've started doing, is changing up my retrieve. Used to just be a constant, steady retrieve, but recently I've started adding pauses in there, especially if I'm slow rolling, because you want the skirt will billow as it slows down and moves. As you pick it up, it'll slender out. As you stop, it'll bellow up. So trying to add that kind of action into it. But typically it's a steady retrieve.
Okay.
But if I'm not getting bit and there's a nice juicy brush pile or log that I know there's got to be a bass on there, that's when I'll start changing things up on the retrieve.
All right. And if you had to give somebody, if somebody came in and said, "What's the one tip you can give me about fishing a spinnerbait that'll make me better at it?" What would it be?
You can't fish it wrong.
Okay.
It's an idiot bait. That's what Jimmy Houston called it in the 80s. It is an idiot bait. Any idiot can pick this thing up, and you can't fish it wrong.
All right.
In fact, I remember
here.
my dad, when I was a teenager, he caught the first spinnerbait fish, and I was mad at him because he was slow rolling it on pea gravel. And I'm working as hard as I can to keep it in sight, create this massive wake just under the water, just like Jimmy Houston did on Saturday. And he catches a 3-pounder slow rolling it off of pea gravel. You can't fish it wrong.
I got you.
Any way you want to fish it, you will eventually catch something.
All right. And do you have any final tips, advice, or comments about the spinnerbait?
There's a lot of spinnerbaits out there that are designed to catch the fishermen. The booyahs are, I like this one. I love the way it looks. I love that skirt. However, I can probably find that skirt in a pack. These are packs. There's actually 4 skirts in this pack. You can change the color of your spinnerbait. Just go find where they sell skirts. So there's chartreuse and white. Did I pull that off of one? I don't know. But I've got skirts just laying around in my tackle box. If you don't want to spend a lot of money on a Booyah spinnerbait, which I think they're like $8, and you want to buy the $2 one off of the peg at the bottom, but you don't like the color, look around. You'll find a pack of skirts. I think this 4-pack may have cost $5. So you can change the color of any spinnerbait very easily, very cheaply. So yeah, just
all right.
Whatever works for you, however you want to fish it, however much you want to spend. You can spend $10 on a 6th sense, or you can spend $2 at the bottom of the pegboard.
Do the cheaper ones have like a tendency to like turn or anything like that? I've heard rumors like they don't swim very well.
I have not gone to the super cheap China made stuff. I have, like I said, I grew up on Strike King I've got a box here full of Strike King from the 80s that are still good condition. I have not tried the super cheap ones. I'm typically looking for that $5-6 spinnerbait, which Strike King still is selling $5 and $6 spinnerbaits today. Then you've got, like I said, the Lucky Strike. Right now, you could probably still go buy 6 packs or 3 packs for $6. And these are made here in the USA.
Look
So-
who finally decided to show
Yeah, I
up.
see him. Well, okay, in his defense, if you didn't know, today's his anniversary. So I've actually talked to him today. He and Crystal went up to Oklahoma City to have a nice dinner. And so that's why he's finally showing up.
I got you.
It
Happy
is his
anniversary.
anniversary.
Congratulations.
A spinnerbait is
Uh,
better than a chatterbait. You just need to go back and rewatch this of what I can do with a spinnerbait that you can't do with a chatterbait.
He's definitely told us some stuff that you need to learn if you're gonna ever beat him with a spinnerbait. That's for sure. So Zach, Sam, do you guys have any other questions you want to ask Dell about the spinnerbait?
No, I kind of want to make a bunch of chatterbait references right now for some reason. I don't know what's going on with me.
So I will tell you that I did watch a guy in a similar situation as this, and he was obviously using the spinnerbait in ways that I'd never thought of. Partly why I've got some of those craw trailers, he would actually put the craw on sideways. So we were talking about the paddle tails. Normally we would put a craw where the legs would be sticking down like this. He would
Right.
actually turn them like this, and he would throw it out there and let the whole thing lay on the bottom. And then with the craw legs sitting like this, as he would move it, the craw legs would move. So he's got
Right.
the blades off to the side, and he's literally using it like a jig off to the side with craw legs sticking back there fluttering. I'd
Did
never
he catch
thought
more
of
fish
that.
than you?
I've never met the guy. I just happened to be looking
Okay.
up YouTube on Spinner. I don't even remember who he is. But that's where the advantage of a spinnerbait is. You can fish it so many different ways, so many different trailers. If it's an idiot bait, you can't fish it wrong, and any idiot can catch fish on it. There, you happy, Modog? I'm an idiot. I love spinner baits because I can fish them however the heck I want. It's not wrong.
I got you. Well, Dell, I appreciate you coming here and talking to us about it tonight.
Thank you for
about
having
both
me
your
on.
favorite species of fish and your favorite bait. Lots of good information out there. Hope you guys were paying attention, took some notes. If not, feel free to watch us again and catch them. There's been lots of great information on tonight's show, that's for sure, both when it comes to white bass and with spinnerbait fishing. Like I said, in terms of the channel, this will be getting shifted all to its own channel, the Bait Tank YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed over there, please consider doing so, because I think I'll probably do next month as well on both channels, but we will be swapping it all over there to that channel primarily in the near future. So don't miss out on that. The next episode is going to be in 2 weeks on April 20th. We will be having Randy and Lisa Swain up here as the guest, talking
The
about
number
one of
one
their favorite
catfisher.
things.
Number one
Yeah,
catfisher.
we're gonna have them up here talking about their favorite way to catfish. Actually, it's a little bit different than what you might think. It should be a good episode as well. With that being said, I'm Anthony with the Extra Outdoors and with the Bait Tank. I got Zach from Catfish Vikings, Sam from Sam's MBT Outdoors, and this is Dell Patton from Sigo Outdoors joining us this evening. Make sure you check out his channel. It's in the pinned comment. Again, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it very much, and we'll see you guys next time. And I'm going to play this song that I should have started a minute ago. My mistake. Y'all have a good night. Thanks for having us. Thanks for joining us, and we will see y'all next time.